Okay, well, it was requested that we review inspections and repair amendments, so that's what we're going to go over today. Um, Obviously, any inspections that you want to get done or that you feel are necessary for your client, or sometimes clients just bring up concerns that may not be a concern of ours, but for whatever reason, maybe they have gone through some specific situation in their past that makes it a bigger concern, right? For instance, um, a client that has gone through a horrific termite experience might want to have an additional termite inspection done, right? So it's just our job to make sure that those things are lined up and handled for them during their option period. And once we have completed our inspections and sat down with our client to start negotiating those repairs, what does that look like when we do the amendment? The first thing to know is sometimes a buyer and seller might agree for the seller to concede a little bit of money at closing to cover what those repairs may cost, or a portion of what they may cost. So instead of replacing a roof, they might decide, okay, we'll give you $8,000 towards your closing costs, because we don't want to go through the trouble of replacing a roof, or the roofer can't get to it in time, or whatever. Many times there's also a claim. A file cannot be closed if there is an open claim on insurance. The insurance won't let it happen, and the lender won't close without a valid insurance policy. And insurance won't switch while there's a valid claim. So know that, because many times around here, in the case of a roof, there will be an insurance claim because there's been hail damage. So know that going in, that you need to be having that conversation with, is this going to leave us with an open insurance claim on closing day? So let's say that the seller and buyer have agreed to some sort of a monetary concession rather than the repair actually being done. Maybe a little bit of both, right? One that I'm working right now, we have a monetary concession on the HVAC, but we have a repair on the roof. The seller has agreed to repair the roof, but not the HVAC system, and they only would provide a monetary concession for the HVAC. So in that case, we did two different amendments, and here's why. We didn't put both of them on one amendment. Could have, right? Like legally, both could be put on an amendment. The seller is going to concede $2,500 for the HVAC repair, and the seller is going to have the roof replaced. Could have gone all on one. However, we never, ever, 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 ever want, well, never say never. Under normal circumstances, we don't want the lender to see any of the inspection report, because or the repair amendments for those inspections. In other words, we're asking for the roof to be replaced, we're asking for the HVAC to be repaired. If the lender were to see this HVAC repair as attached, this amendment as attached to the contract, because the lender has to send everything through underwriting. That's all of the amendments. So if this repair amendment goes to the lender, when the appraiser goes out to the property, the appraiser is now required to approve that repair. If the appraiser, and that can be a matter of opinion, right? Just like a CMA can be a matter of opinion. So if the appraiser doesn't like the repair that was done, it can halt or even kill your transaction. So under normal circumstances, we probably aren't going to send a repair amendment to the lender. In this particular situation that I'm in the middle of right now, I actually did. I actually sent an entire HVAC to to the lender, the entire report to the lender. Normally, under normal circumstances, we only want the lender to see the monetary conveyance, right? The seller has agreed to pay $2,500. We don't put on there in lieu of, right? We just say paragraph 12B is changed to, right? So we add the repair amount that they're conceding in that part on the amendment. In my case, I strategically chose to send it because to send the HVAC report to the lender. Our furnace is not working on this house, right? The general inspector was not able to get it going. And then we had the HVAC guy go in, and the HVAC guy said, this has to be replaced. So I have sent that report to the lender because I know that for an FHA loan, and here's the importance of knowing about your loans, an FHA loan is going to require a heating source in that home. That furnace is the only heating source there is in that home. So FHA is going to require that as a lender required repair. I am hoping when the seller sees that the seller will go ahead and agree to pay more than $2,500, because I don't have to tell any of y'all, that furnace is going to cost more than $2,500, and that's all the seller would agree to. I went on ahead and took the seller's agreeing to it. If that HVAC repair comes in, the seller's going to have, if the seller agrees to do the lender required repair according to that paragraph, then the seller is going to have to renegotiate that amendment where they've already agreed to pay the $2,500. So, hey, maybe I end up getting the $2,500 and a repaired HVAC. That paragraph in the property condition allows the buyer and the seller to negotiate. My buyer is not able to take care of that furnace. This seller will lose the deal if they do not choose to have that repaired. So I'm kind of hoping to hold their feet to the fire. Does everybody understand why you would never send a repair amendment, an actual repair? Like, we are asking for the roof to be replaced. We're not sending that amendment to the lender. We're only sending the amendment that changed the concessions from the seller. That's the only one we're sending to the lender. But now in this particular case, went a step further strategically and also said, here's the HVAC inspection. We want the appraiser to see this when he goes out to the house. So the appraiser will now have that in their hand. Does everybody kind of understand that? Sitting down and going over with your client the importance of different items, right? In this particular case, we'll go back to this one that I'm working on now. The dishwasher is also full of mold, and the smoke detectors don't work, right? Well, when you're comparing a roof that is at the end of its life, an HVAC furnace that doesn't work at all, like, maybe those other items are a little bit finicky, like, right? Like, maybe we can just weigh it out and the buyer can take care of those when they move in. So sit down with your clients and really weigh out, like, what is really a deal killer? Because we're throwing $20,000 at the seller right now of repairs for them to do, because the roof is going to cost $10,000. The HVAC is going to cost $10,000. So we just threw $20,000 at them for repairs that are needed. So, what is actually necessary? Like, kind of step back out of and look at it more objectively, right? As to what the seller is going to be out in order to get these things done. And sometimes pulling a new CMA can help also, so that your buyer understands this is the condition of houses in the area. This is what they're selling for. So your buyer has some understanding of that as well, to maybe put things in perspective for them. Um, and having an inspector that can go in and say, this is just normal maintenance. No biggie. This is how you take care of it, right? It could get worse if you don't do X, Y, and Z, right? So make sure that your inspector is not trying to kill the deal himself, and not in it like, it's my job to find something wrong with this house, so I'm gonna go find everything wrong with this house and look at all the wrong things I can find. And they end up scaring, those kinds just end up scaring your buyers away. And sometimes when your buyer gets scared away from one inspection, I've had it happen before, they decide purchasing is not for them, that they would rather just go rent and let somebody else have the problems. So the benefits of home ownership does not outweigh the problems, right? Instead, the problems outweigh the benefits. So, because they got scared. So it's a lesson learned, and you'd never use that inspector again. Okay. Really, I mean, I don't have much more. Do you have anything that you need me to discuss and go over? The agents that requested this, hopefully they have a chance to watch it later. Um, Going to pull open this inspection report and just review it real
Lor-
quick.
Lori,
Yes,
I'm so sorry. I was on the phone and I didn't get to hear. So when a repair amendment comes back, you do not send it to the lender.
if you are requesting a repair, in most situations, you do not want to send a repair amendment to the lender,
Okay.
because the appraiser will have to approve that repair.
Okay.
And if it doesn't meet their standards,
Hmm.
they can, I mean, the whole thing can, be a wash. It can be um, denied.
Okay.
It the house can then be not approved. So
Okay. Do not send. Okay.
so generally, now I have used that strategically if I felt that some of the workmanship on the house was um kind of shoddy,
Hmm.
then I have sent it strategically
Hmm.
so that I'm protecting my client, to make sure that we have um good workmanship on the work that's being done.
Okay.
When I did that, the contract did not have the clause in there that it now has, that says a professional has to do it. If a license is required, then the person doing it has to have a license for that, right? Like we
Hmm.
have that paragraph or that clause in there now. Um, when I was going through that particular situation, that clause did not exist. And I was having too many times write in something similar, that it had to be done by a professional, or it had to be done by a licensed electrician or a licensed plumber or a licensed HVAC. We don't have to write that in anymore, because the contract covers it.
Okay.
Back then when we did, I strategically used sending the repair amendment to the lender, so that I could make sure that the work, was done. That the appraiser then would have to review the work and make sure that it met standards. Um, so I haven't had to do it very much often. Anytime that you're sending anything that has to do with repairs or inspections to the lender, it needs to be a strategic move. Just like sending the inspection report to the listing agent, right? Sometimes that's a strategic move during your option period, because now once the seller looks at, the 2,500 things that are wrong with this house, perhaps they will be more inclined to fix the three big ones we're asking for.
Hmm.
Right. So that can be done strategically. In the same way, sometimes you may want to do something strategically where you're sending a repair amendment or an inspection. In this case, I sent the HVAC inspection to the lender.
Okay.
and said, we would like the appraiser to review this when they appraise the house. I
Okay.
just straight told her. I called and had a conversation with her first and said, if I'm not mistaken, because I thought I was right on this, a furnace is required for an FHA loan. And she said, yes, that she thought it was, but she would look up the guidelines. And she did. And we were right. It is required. So, so I went ahead and sent that report, with photos, showing the condition of the HVAC system, because it doesn't come on at all. Like, there's no heat in that house.
Now, is
Um,
it a heating element is required or an
the
HVAC?
blower,
Because if they have a fireplace, they don't
No.
have to have a heater.
no, the blower's not even working. There's not a fireplace.
No, but that's what I'm saying though. Is
There's
that
not a
the difference?
fireplace. There's not.
No, but is that the difference? That's what I'm saying. If there had been a fireplace, then technically FHA would not have required an
If there
HVAC to
had,
be.
if there had been a fireplace, that could cross the appraiser's mind, yes. So that's where, just like your CMA is a matter of opinion, right? Like, you and I can both do a CMA and come up with different amounts that this house should sell for. And you can have two different appraisers go out to a property, and then they both kind of judge differently, right? So
I had a FHA appraiser tell me that I had a stove that wasn't working. And I was told that if I had a built-in microwave, then the stove would not have been an issue,
That's
as long
correct.
as there was one thing for them to prepare their food. So that's why I
That's
was
correct.
asking. It's kind of the same similar thing, which it still makes no sense. A fireplace doesn't heat an entire house. A microwave doesn't cook an entire meal. Like, that's,
if you met my sister, you'd think different. She was the queen of microwave meals. I was the queen of crock pot meals. We were both single moms. Can you tell? I'm looking for I'm flipping through this. Looking for my inspection report.
hey, now my other question, Lori, is since we're not sending it to the lender, does title, when they're getting ready to close the deal and lender asks for all the docs, if we've submitted it to title so that it's part of the contract, won't they just
The
send
lender
it on
doesn't
over?
ask the title company for docs.
Okay. Okay.
The lender is going to ask us for those documents, or the buyer for those documents. So that's why when we get the signed contract, I tell my buyer, I'll send all of the documents over to the lender for you. I just tell them straight up, as soon as I have signatures, I'll send that over to your lender and they'll get started on it. I tell them that
But
straight up.
then this is where I'm wondering if it's a little bit of a gray area then, because if it's an amendment or it's part of the contract. So when the lender asks for the contract and we don't send amendments, are we kind of gray area in there? Or, I mean, now listen, all the lenders tell me the same thing. I've been doing this for, way too many years in many different states. And
It's an amendment that has nothing to do with the monetary
yeah, that's how you get away with it. Yeah.
dispersion. If there is a monetary amount being paid for a non-realty addendum, the non-realty addendum has to go. If there's not a monetary amount on that, it does not have to go.
Okay.
If you want it inspected, it
Then
should, if you want the appraiser to consider that, then it should go, right? Hot tub, for instance, we want the appraiser to take a look at that and consider that, then it should go. Does this make sense?
Yeah,
So-
yeah, because I know in my other contracts, I write like I want a termite report and I want the seller to pay for the termite report. I put that in as my main contract, and then the lender doesn't care about the report; he just wants the clearance. Yeah, so it's same. That's why I just make it's kind of simple. It sounds like it's same kind of idea.
Very, very much. I mean, it's just use it strategically, right? Always use your inspections strategically. This new inspection company that I'm using, they don't have the summary pages at the end. I do love those summary pages at the end. If you have a professional expert go out, say for instance, to do an inspection, to do an HVAC inspection, your report is not necessarily going to look like an inspection, right? Like we're used to inspections looking. Looking to share my screen here. It is going to look more like, and I talk to my experts too. Hey, this is our issue. I need a report that explains this clearly so that we can send it over to the seller, right? I'm sharing this screen. Evan, I'm not sure when you hopped on. Hey there. I didn't see you pop in.
Hey, sorry, I got caught up on a call and lost track of time.
That's okay. Did you get your title thing taken care of?
Yes, we actually filed a claim and then it ended up they were okay with not having to go that deep into it. So we're good to close.
Oh, how about that? That's interesting. Okay. So you see this was my HVAC report for this particular property. Description of the work, he was hired to come in and do, it looks more like an invoice. You see here that it shows the balance due and everything is right on here, right? And I think it says invoice at the top. Yeah, invoice number. Description of work. This is where you having a conversation with your expert is going to be so very important. I had a conversation with him and said, we need to send this to the seller so they clearly understand the work that needs to be done, right? This was when I was still trying to negotiate for this work to be completed by the seller. And with this, he also sent me the cost of what that everything was going to cost. He sent me estimates that it would cost to get this done. But the indoor blower motor is bad. The motor is attempting to start, makes a loud humming, grinding noise. Attic installation is up to standard. Duct work is good, right? He's showing his entire inspection, right? He was hired to do an entire inspection. Repairs. Zone 1 and 2 damper is stuck open. Motor needs to be replaced in the zone board. Secondary drain pan is rusted and needs to be replaced. Incoming high voltage needs a disconnect box. Due to the age and poor condition of the indoor unit, it should be replaced. Outdoor unit is newer than the indoor. Don't see any reason for replacement at this time. Along with this, he sent estimates. Y'all tell me if you can see when I go back and pull up this estimate. Report. That's the only page I had on there. It is. All right, I need to find my estimates. Should be right here. No. Let me see if this was it. Maybe not. He sent us also all of the estimates for the replacement, and we forwarded all of those estimates over to the seller with that document saying that it had to be replaced. When I sent it to the lender, I only sent that report saying that it has to be replaced. That's all I sent. So because it's an FHA, chances of them requiring for that to be replaced are pretty high. The lender and I are both pretty convinced that they're going to require it. So with that, whenever you send a document like that to the seller, many times you want to go ahead and send the estimates that you gained also, so the seller can see, and they can call and get their own pricing, right? But in this case, the seller wanted ours because they're out of state, so they wanted ours. But the biggest thing to know is to put the repair on a separate amendment than the monetary seller concessions. Those should be separated out under most circumstances. Okay. Are there any questions about anything I need to go over about inspections themselves? Other than be strategic about them. If you need to have a little bit extra pull or a little bit extra leverage with your seller, sometimes it's a good idea if you're representing the buyer. Of course, if I'm representing the seller, I never want to see that inspection report. And I don't like it when buyer agents send it over to me before we've even had a chance to negotiate the repairs, you know. I would prefer that they would just go ahead and like try to negotiate with me before you send it over. There have been times that I have sent it with our request for repairs because I already knew that the seller had, you know, kind of set a precedent that they weren't planning on repairing anything. And in those cases, I have sent it over right away. So it's a strategic move. You use it for your negotiating, right? It was a strategic move for me to send the HVAC report to the lender. It's like playing chess. From the very beginning, everything you do is strategic. From the time you walk into the house to look at it, you're not showing any excitement on your face. You're not, you know, discussing how you're gonna tear down walls or anything like that. The seller might love and hate you for removing. So it's all strategic right from the beginning. Evan, what else did you think that your agents might need covered on this subject?
I don't think really anything. I think just knowing, like you said, you know, what to put in the amendment that Trek provides or the realtors does, or versus your kind of own addendum wording, that kind of thing.
So I think when you are asking for repairs, let's hit that wording a little bit. When you're asking for repairs from the seller, it is important to be very specific. And like I said, previously, there was a time that as agents, we had to put in our request for repairs that the seller would use a professional. The contract covers us now. We don't have to do that anymore. They are required to use a professional and a licensed professional where a license is required by the state. But it is still very important to be specific. I take the wording from the inspection. If it's something that I'm asking for it to be repaired, I take the wording directly from the inspection, because when they are sending that to their professional, they're going to need the exact wording, right? All I could tell you is that furnace wasn't working. It wouldn't even come on, right? But that HVAC report said it was the blower motor, blah, blah, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
If there is a grounding something for the gas, something outside, right? We see that a lot too. I use the exact wording so that when the repair person is out there, when the vendor is out there, they know exactly what needs to be fixed. Because whatever wording you put in there is exactly what's going to get done. Let's say we are requesting the roof to be replaced. The roof being replaced means I want the deck, the tar paper, and the shingles done. That's what the roof consists of. So is that actually, when you see that come in, and if that were to go to a court of law, there's no clarity. Well, I mean, you could hold somebody's feet to the fire and say that decking was never replaced, right? If you are asking for the HVAC system to be serviced, okay. Guy comes in, services the HVAC, tells the homeowner, this is not working right. Okay. I had it serviced just like I was asked to do. That's all I was asked to do. I'm not fixing anything else. If we put in the repair amendment, have HVAC serviced so that it functions properly, so that it functions as intended,
Mhm.
right?
Okay, however, point of order. If the HVAC is serviced, repairman says to the seller, this doesn't work, the seller doesn't disclose it, now the seller's in a whole lot more trouble when we find out about it.
Actually, yes, because the contract also requires that the seller provide us the invoice showing that it's been paid and any reports or work orders that were provided. So all the document that was provided for that service, they have to give to us.
Mhm.
They're required by, so when you're sitting down, actually back that up, not sitting down at the closing, when you are going through the walkthrough, only hours before closing, please. Don't do it the day before because tragedies happen overnight. I literally have had that happen. If we had gone the night before, everything would have been great. We went the morning of and discovered that because the water heater repairman had been there the night before, he left the water heater open, the faucet open. The entire, it was in the garage, in the attic in the garage. The entire garage had flooded. All of the sheetrock had fallen. It was fine the night before. This happened overnight, right? So tragedies happen overnight. Get as close to your closing time as you can possibly get. If you can stop by the house on the way to the closing table, that is your best case scenario. And I tell my buyers that every single time I have a closing. When you go by your to do your final walkthrough, you're going to take your repair amendments and you're going to take whatever other documentation has been provided by the seller. When you're coordinating the final walkthrough with the seller's agent, you want to say, hey, we're going by at this time. Can you make sure I have all of the documentation with me whenever we go by, right? I print that stuff out, have it in my hand. Just because I'm a paper person, as much as I try to be paperless, sometimes it's necessary to have papers. And then go ahead and get your buyer to sign the walkthrough, the final walkthrough addendum as well, because that is protecting you from the buyer coming back and saying, oh, we never did check that. Right. So have your buyer sign that final walkthrough form before closing. But that gives you an opportunity to check and make sure all of these items were taken care of. And you have these items before you show up at the title company. You have been able to inspect, your buyer had an opportunity to inspect that the work was completed. Definitely use specific wording. And it's just much easier if you say, repair the faucet in the bathroom. Well, if I walk in there and that faucet is a little bit loose, okay, I'm going to repair the faucet so that it's loose. Little did I know that you were talking about the leak underneath the sink from the faucet, right? Be very specific in your requests. And I always like to put at the end so that it functions as it was intended or functions properly, whichever. Because something can function properly or function as it was intended, right? So, on my seller side, we had a door that was not closing properly. It would, like the little thing that's supposed to fit inside the other thing was not connecting, and it wasn't doing that. So, the buyer put on their repair request to have the master bedroom door repaired so that it closes. Okay. So when she couldn't get in, something had happened with her E-key, and she called me. So I went over there and unlocked the thing for her. First, I checked to make sure she was still active because now I don't have to pay the buyer's agent if she's not active anymore. But so first I checked her license to make sure she was still active. She was. And then I went and opened up the super box and got her in the house. But because I was right there, right, they were able to say, check on these doors, right? So, she showed me that when the master's bedroom door was closed, it still had a little bit of play, right? Like if the AC turned on, it was going to go boop and make that noise, right? And when the AC turned off, it would relax again. If the AC turned on again, it would go boop and make that noise again, right? Like there was still some play there. And I said, oh, okay, well, let me go back and look at our agreement and I'll get back to you. Right. So I went on ahead and left. I wasn't going to have the discussion there in front of her clients. I don't get into drama. I don't get into pissing contests. I ain't doing that. So I did. I went back and looked at it and I texted her back with a picture of it. I just said to make sure that they close. It closes properly, doesn't it? If you wanted to make sure it was functioned as intended, then you should have put that on there. Because the door is not intended to have that give. She's right. She didn't say function as intended. She said make sure it closes properly. It did. It closed.
Lori, I have a question on the roof thing. So if you replace a roof with a like kind roof, is that not enough?
Yes, but again, when you say roof, you're talking about decking, tar, and shingles. Any agent that knows what they're doing will shoot it back to you and say, does your client also want the decking replaced? Right? So I tend to most of the time put, and you can see the decking whenever you pull down the attic ladder, what you're seeing straight up there, that plywood, that's the decking. That's what the tar paper and the shingles are laying on top of, right? So if you are in the attic or your inspector points out that in the attic he could see water spots on that decking, maybe the decking does need to be replaced. In which case you would say roof, right? Or sometimes I put on there any damaged decking, right?
So when an inspector goes over there, because I've never had an inspector actually say the decking, and maybe it was because it didn't need to be replaced, but they just use the term roof. So
Let
are
me
you
show you
saying
this.
that
Go ahead.
okay, now I'm really confused. So if a roofer replaces a roof, are they actually replacing the decking, the paper, and the shingle? Or are they only taking off the shingles and putting?
That would be all three. The roof consists of all three.
So they are doing all three when they replace a roof.
Not necessarily. That's what she's asking, Lori. If a roofer gets up there and sees that there's shingles that are messed up, they're going to do their best to save the client money. Most of them, if they're reputable, they're going to pull those shingles off and they're going to see the paper underneath. And if the paper looks good, then they may just patch it. But you're right, Evan. If like Lori was saying, if a leak has come through the roof, well then you've got about a 95% chance that whole section needs to be
So
including the decking and the paper.
here's where
Okay.
here's where it can get, and you've got to protect your clients, right? I'm pulling up this inspection because there was actual decking damage, so we will look at exactly how the inspector worded that for you, Evan.
Okay.
If you have intentionally put on your repair amendment to replace the roof, and you go for your final walkthrough and you pull down that ladder and that decking is old, they did not replace the roof. They only replaced the shingles and maybe the tar.
Okay, so the term roof means decking, tar, or whatever that word, and the shingles.
Correct.
So saying the word replace the roof with a like kind roof, if roof means those three things, would that not be enough to say?
Yes. So that's where most agents are going to read it and they're going to have the shingles replaced. Some sellers will go so far as just have new shingles put right on top. And so now you've got a double layer of shingles, which is an absolute no-no also. Looking for this inspection again. So that is why I get very specific amendment
So
for
you
roof
could
repair.
essentially say sellers to have roof replaced with like kind roof, and then parentheses, decking, tar paper, and shingle. So it's understood that it's not just.
In this particular one, I have replaced roof shingles and tar paper.
Okay, I looked this up because I was getting confused too. The legal definition of roof is the cover of any building, including the eaves and similar projections.
See, that gets into the eaves. So now
Yeah.
the eaves are part of it too. So if I say replace the roof, that means like the eaves have to come off of there. That means all of it.
Yeah, so that's
So
the
if
legal
I'm
definition of it.
protecting my seller, I want to get clarity on that. Is this really what your client is asking for?
Well, so like, okay, let's say they use a roofer that works with insurance. Is it insurance provider going to insure roof that the entire part is not replaced, just the shingles?
Yes. They will insure a roof with just replacing tar paper and the shingles. Can you guys see this?
Yes.
Okay, so it says, now I would have worded this differently. I had an agent helping me with this. I would have worded this differently. I would have said remove old and replace with new shingles and tar paper. This is where you would go like kind shingles and tar paper, right? And this
So I've
should
also
have,
had a deal like where, and I don't even know if I put it in the inspection or in the request to replace, but my clients were given, we got a brand new roof and then they got a warranty from that roofer. So is that another thing that you would want to add on there, is to be sure that and warranty is provided to buyer?
that is also covered in the contract.
Okay.
And we can pull up the contract here in a little bit. That amendment that I was just looking at, I'm a little bit not happy right now because that should have also said and damaged decking, because there was some damaged decking in here. And I thought we had that in our amendment. So I'm a little bit like, right now. My client specifically asked for damaged decking to be addressed.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So, I had a trainee help me with that one, so I'm kind of like, can you all see this inspection report that I'm flipping through?
Yeah, so another thing on this report, and I've used them before, and I liked how they color coded, like, so the client really sees what's
Yeah.
really detrimental, because that's one thing I like to tell, educate your clients on, that let's not go present everything that's on this report, because you're going to possibly get nothing because you make the seller mad, or you know, it's just not a good look when you're getting 30,000 off the sales price of the house.
Mhm.
Um, but that was one thing I just want to throw in here is definitely make sure that you read through and find out. I always like to go through it myself first. Obviously, tell my
Mhm.
client to review it themselves, but I like to pull out what I feel like is important and then
I
present
do.
that in an addendum to my client and then let them tell me if there's something else they feel is important that I missed before we
Yeah.
just go flood the seller with all this.
Absolutely. I typically don't create the addendum until I've met with my buyer and reviewed the report together. I'll tell them, hey, the report came in. I'm at appointments. I can meet with you at this time. You know, when will you have a chance to look at it? When's a good time for us to meet? And compare notes. It's typically the way that I put that in there. And then I straight up ask them right away, which one of these items was like stood out to you the most? And sometimes you'll find the stuff that stands out to them the most is like, oh yeah, we don't even need to worry about that.
Yeah, well, that's true. I guess there's the times I probably put items on the list that they wouldn't even have thought to put on there.
Yeah. Well, and then there's
Now,
also
Lori,
times that I bring up stuff and I'm like, to protect you, I'm going to recommend that you request this because
Yeah.
this is kind of a big deal and it costs you money later on, right? So that's where I can bring in my expertise.
now, Lori, you'd said that, you know, you don't typically like the inspection report sent to you as the seller's agent. What I do is after I come up for my request for repairs, I will actually send the page of the inspection report that refers to that repair. That way
Yes.
they can see that. I mean, and let's be honest, this report's 33 pages. Unless the seller absolutely wants to see it. Some sellers, I have had some sellers want to see it because they want to know what's wrong with their house.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I mean, they don't want 33 pages. They don't want that, but they'll take a couple of them. That way, you know, Evan, how she was talking about, it can sometimes get misunderstood. If
Yeah.
I'll just send that particular part of the inspection report to the agent and say, the roof needs to be replaced. See page 6, you know, letter F on the inspection report. And it's attached. And then that way,
Yeah.
if I didn't say it
I
right, you have no reason to say that you don't know because it's right here.
I will do that because I want the pictures to go with it. Or I will use that little snipping tool and I'll just snip it out.
So
And
here's
include
another
it
thing
in.
I just thought of, and I have to go in like 8 minutes. So let's say the roof needs to be replaced. I'm representing the buyer. The seller's agent's like, okay, well, who says it's going to cost this amount of money, or who says it really needs to be replaced? Do you have a roofer that you want? Can you get a roofer over there between now and tomorrow? And they put it on me. But then I've also had deals where the buyer wants the seller to get their roofer to go over there. Um, is it just a matter of who can get a roofer over there and agree
Matter
on?
of what the buyer and seller agree to,
Okay.
what the buyer and seller are comfortable with, right? That seller lives in the house at the time. They may want to bring their own guy in.
I understand that, but I would say as a buyer's agent representing the buyer, I would want my roofer, the buyer's roofer, to go over there because we don't know that the seller, you know, we'd like to think that, but there's cases that maybe they know a roofer. I don't know.
Well,
It's
if a
Right.
really
general inspector tells you that there's a roof issue, you would want to get a second inspection specifically from a roofing company, because a general inspector, while he can see the roof, you know, via the drone or something, he's not necessarily climbing up on top of the roof. And what he sees as a sunspot might just be a slipped shingle. And so a roofer can get up there and go, no, no, it's this, and have it fixed. Um, you know, so you'd want to get, and in that instance, I would talk to my buyer and say, I would think it's in your best interest to go ahead and pay for this additional inspection for a
Green
roofer.
scene, green scene is now, damn, I cannot find this picture that I'm looking for. There was a picture in here of like actual damaged, it looked like somebody put their foot through the decking.
Yeah, because they can, if you can see it through the drone, I mean, it's there, but yeah,
Um,
that's the other thing too. And then I've had clients who, like you said, Lori, the sellers live there, and the roof is nearing the end of its life, but the roof is fine.
Mhm.
There's nothing wrong with it. There's no leaks,
But they
nothing.
can't
It's
get
just old.
insurance. They can't
It's
get
just old.
insurance.
Well, I've had sellers say, no, I'm not repairing it.
Yeah.
You take it as is.
Good luck selling it, because I can't, they'll have to sell it to a cash buyer.
Yeah.
In Texas, because of all of the hail damage, insurance companies are not insuring roofs that are a certain amount old. Every insurance company has their own standards on that.
Mhm.
So, make sure you have an agent that can try several different underwriters for you. I cannot find this picture I'm looking for, but there was a particular spot in the decking on this roof that was damaged, and that amendment was supposed to say remove and replace, and then it was also supposed to say repair damaged decking. So, yeah, not real happy with that, but I was out and about and had somebody else review it for me.
Do you ladies attend your inspections, or do you just wait until he's done? What do you do?
I do my very best to be there when it's at the end of just for the report.
I
I've
also
had
try to be there. Yeah.
I've had too many inspectors tell me that it is distracting when they have people there, that they have a routine that they go through. So I try to stay out of their way and let them handle their routine.
Now in San Diego, I have to do an agent's visual inspection. So I do that while the inspector's there. If the buyer's there, cool. If he's not there, that's fine too. But I do it because I've already inconvenienced the seller by having an inspector there. So I go while the seller's there. So that's the other thing too, because I mean, like I said, we're not experts. If I see a spot on the wall, I can't say there was a leak. I can just say there appears to be a spot on the wall from water, that kind of thing. But I was just curious.
Yeah, ultimately just being very specific as to what your buyer wants to have done. This is one thing that my buyer had wanted to have included, as well as that one piece that was damaged. I'm looking for it. I can't see it right this very second. And I've looked through it 3 times. But there was a piece that looked like somebody's foot had come through, and she was like, she wanted to have that repaired too. So I might be a little bit panicking right now because that wasn't done correctly, and I just now noticed it. But you want to be very specific, that the tar paper is replaced and that the shingles are replaced. Remove and replace shingles and tar paper. And then if there's other, decking damage that should be addressed, that you've got to mention it specifically to make sure that your definition of roof and their definition of roof are the same thing. She's already started? Okay. My seller has already joined our noon appointment, so I need to run.
Thanks, Lori. That was really helpful. Maybe we might even do a part 2 on that.
Okay. All right. That sounds
right.
good.
Thanks, ladies.
Okay,
Bye.
thanks.
See you
Bye.
soon.